Thank you, Sarima, for the tag. Sarima here often posts very interesting takes and or news regarding anime in Japan, and that's what we got going on today. So over 1,400 likes on this tweet. Sarima says, Kadokawa's president Takeshi Natsuno said that manga are unable to pass the examination of Google and Apple, so the rules of what is okay or not to express in the public must be changed for this era of the internet. This is not a drill. So this came from a discussion on a Japanese TV network, which was then transcribed in an article and translated by Sarima. Thank you again, Sarima, for the translation as well. Now, let me mention that I do see a lot of people worried about this news, and rightfully so, but take a moment and pause and think about this. You know, we got to take into scope the full context and also the precedent that this is Japan. In Japan, the precedent indicates that they don't bow down to censorious practices, aside from Sony. There are a few more companies that have actually self-censored even in Japan, but you get the point. On average, by far, most of those companies aren't doing that stuff. So Natsuno apparently talks about how some manga are unable to pass the examination of Google and Apple, and right away that confused me a bit because, well, in the manga industry, they don't seem to actually really rely on Google or Apple to get things licensed or distributed, you know. A company to be aware or concerned of Google and Apple because they're giant corporations with a lot of power, yeah, that makes sense. But to change your business model over it when they're really not that involved in what you're doing doesn't really make that much sense to me. And you continue reading on, and it kind of makes more sense when you look at it because it's kind of a hypothetical situation he's saying. He's saying, if we do need to create a new standard based on Google and Apple, we might have to censor some more, which shouldn't shock anybody. As a matter of fact, though, here's the part you might be surprised about. Google, I don't know about Apple so much, but Google, I know more about. And I can say Google, on the YouTube side of things, has actually been working to lighten restrictions. Like a couple months ago, they are allowing us to now monetize certain topics that we previously weren't able to. Furthermore, as Sarima wrote down here, and I agree with him 100% by the way, he says, it's dangerous to argue only based off this article. You must watch the show first because, again, keep in mind, the article is a transcription of the show and not the full show. The full show was about 30 minutes long. So we're not going to get the full context here. Now, I also have the show, and I can pull it up. I'll have to use a VPN to watch it, but that's still not really going to help because, well, it's in Japanese, and I won't understand 95% of what's going on. Over here, this user on Twitter, Seraph, asked Sarima, could this really happen? Are the Japanese consumers going to stand for this? But before we continue, let me again remind you that this is not something that's happening right now currently. It was a hypothetical discussion, as far as I could understand, based off the limited context, and we need the rest of the context, but you already have my reasoning on that. Still, person asked Sarima that question, and Sarima says they will. The word is spreading like fuse to the gunpowder. But Sarima then clarified that he means they will stand up to the censorship. In other words, the Japanese consumers will not stand for this stuff. It certainly will not be as easy as it was in the West for these things to happen. He says Kadokawa is big, but they are not the only one in business. If they fail, they will be replaced in Japan. And I gotta say, I pretty much agree with Streamer on that as well. On top of that, the manga industry is currently booming, so I would Kadokawa want to limit their opportunities in that way. Well, I can give you the argument for that side, actually. In business, it's not always a bad idea to expand while you're in a growth period, while you're seeing a lot of success. Might make the expansion more successful as well, or at least more likely to succeed. However, in this situation, when the expansion is talking about censoring your current products and curbing your current products, well, then the expansion comes at the cost of destroying your current business, which makes a lot less sense. But hey, again, we also don't have the full context, so I'm like a broken record here. Let me just leave you with this. I think it's reasonable to have a little bit of concern from this news. Maybe there's a little bit of truth to it, but I do think overall it's being blown out of proportion a little bit by some people, and I don't think this is something you should be too concerned about. Just follow what's going on. We'll see where it goes. And certainly nothing to be upset about. But that's just my opinion, and again, I am trying to come from a place of optimism here. However, it's not blind optimism. It is optimism based off the data, based off precedent, etc., etc. So let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to catching you next time.